Okay, hi everyone. We're gonna start with the conference number 24, of knowledge of oneself, that is called life and the level of being. The objective of this conference, the purpose, is that each of us learns how to identify in which level of being are we and how to change that, how to transcend that level and get to a higher level of being. So as you can see in the image, there's a stairway with a different horizontal line of time in which we are born and die. That is the horizontal line. We're going to talk about that subject later, but the purpose is to understand that there is something more transcendental than getting to the existence and just being born to die again. There is something spiritual beyond that part of being in a physical body and eventually dying. There is a purpose for our existence, and we ask ourselves all the time, who are we, where do we come from, where are we going to, and why do we live? We have all these questions of the meaning of our existence, and we haven't even gotten to know why do we live for. We just mechanically get day to day to all our routines, and well, there's nothing beyond that. So we are going to talk about what is this that we call the level of being. We live in a society. We can observe the human life nowadays. We are bottled up in the dogma of evolution, thinking that modern society is advanced, is better, and we are rational animals mistakenly called man. And as you can see in the image, we think we've gotten better with time, that we are more civilized, that we have all the tools of science, of progress, of being advanced, of discovering many things scientifically, many cures to diseases, many comfort, many material things that we accumulate, many economical increasement in our society. We can see that we have more population that we had in society back in medieval time, for example, and so we think we have gotten better with time, that modern culture, modern society is the most perfect stage of mankind. And well, that is a false dogma, because as you can see, we have evolved in many ways, scientifically and material, in the material part, in medicine, in all of that theoretical and intellectual subjects. But in the moral stage of mankind, we have become more degenerate. And proof of that is the state of our society in the 20th century. The first and second global wars, the cruelty, the atrocity. We now have the ability to destroy ourselves and the entire planet with atomic bombs, with nuclear weapons, with biological weapons. We have the ability to destroy not only ourselves individually, but all the planet and all mankind. So you can see that is a false dogma. All of that we have evolved, that we have become better human beings with the pass of time and the evolution of society. As you can see, we are throwing garbage to the waters of our planet and not valuing what we have as a physical human machine, that is our body, and also the planet Earth. So that is a false dogma. And in our level of being, we are totally degenerated. we have no value for our life, for human life, for the life of the planet Earth. So that is a moral, decreasement, as you can see, because the intellectual part, if it advances, but the moral part doesn't advances with it, we become more degenerate and more evil. That we think we were barbarians back in medieval times, in what we call the tribal stages of our society in which we live, only from the things of the earth, in tribes, just collecting or just hunting animals. We thought we were barbarians, but nowadays we are more barbarians, even because we have the ability not only to destroy others, but to destroy the whole planet and the whole creation. So also we think that as civilized modern people, we are powerful, we are influent, we have a lot of money, a lot of social influences, we have the good prestige of our dad, we have titles, professional degrees, we have a lot of things which we are proud of, that are from the personality, and we ignore our weaknesses. For example, we think, take a person that is that boasts from influence in the society, a person that has many money, many social contacts, that is proud of being really influential, and put it in the middle of the desert of Sahara, far from the oasis, and you will see how weak can we be in the middle of nothing. Our power, our influence just depends on the social position of the nexus of people that are proud of themselves just for having money, just for having a lot of titles, degrees, and things that we have acquired through our personality. So we ignore our weaknesses, and we think, as intellectual humanoids, we are really strong. We are frightfully weak. The rational animal is 100% foolish. Thinks he's the best. Thinks with kindergarten, with civil manuals, with elementary, middle, and high school, he is just done. With good manners, he is the best of all and is the most powerful. But the reality is that any sadness, any anger gets us out of ourselves, gets us totally weak. For example, take yourself when you cannot find something you are searching for at home. You get desperate, you insult people, you blame people. Oh, you are messing with my things, you are hiding my things, oh, you have no respect for me. So, really, anything can take us out of our tranquility, our harmony. So we are totally weak. We don't have any power to control our internal states. So, as we were saying, the mirror in which we should look is really the context in which we are in, our social moment, because the external part is a reflection of what we have inside. If you condemn the government, you condemn the religions, you condemn and you criticize and blame everything that is around you, well, that's what you have inside, because you are immersed in this society. And really what we should study within ourselves is what we criticize of people that we see around us, because what is inside is outside, and if we are in this society, it's because we are related to the social problems that society has. So to think that time means progress is absurd. We continue bottled up, thinking that we advance in time, society advances, science advances, medicine advances, and we think we are the best. But we're really weak because we have no power to dominate ourselves internally, our microcosmos. We are full of thoughts, emotions, instincts, and we don't get to even self-observe our interior to control that, all that fire that we have inside of us. We have no power to rule our internal states. Anything, a little discussion can turn us into complete depressed and powerless people. So we need to get out of those states and learn how to control that. So also we're gonna see that as we were saying, the crowd is the sum of the individuals. So everyone that is working here, you see, to awaken the conscience is going to be seen as a fool. People say, hey, you're in the opposite direction when you tend to fight your instincts, your anger, your greed, your being competitive, being proud of yourself, when you tend to be humble, just to be peaceful, all the people around you tend to look at you as if you were crazy, because the crowd is the sum of the individuals. We have to look within ourselves. If we also criticize the society in which we live, we have to take into account that what we criticize is also inside of us. So we have to change ourselves first in order to getting the crowd to change. You have to be that grain of sand that is going to be the seed for a change. If you don't change what is inside of you, you cannot expect other people to change and be better persons. For example, if you think, oh, my neighbor is really unfaithful to her husband, he's always flirting with this guy and this other guy, and you see the psychological flow of adultery in her. Well, you need to self-observe yourself in order to look what's inside of you. Maybe you haven't seen your own lust, your own adulteries, you haven't looked at yourself and observe all the darkness that is inside of you. So if you want people to be more faithful to the crowd, if you want the crowd to be faithful, to be able to maintain a relationship, to have principles, etc., etc., you have to be the one that shows the example for that. You have to be the model for that, and not only to show people how to behave. No, that is not the purpose. The purpose is to just awaken your conscience and to be in contact with your spiritual part, the force of your being, that is going to manifest when you just eliminate that psychological flow that is taking all your energy from your microcosmos. So the somber pages of the dark history are full of the same atrocities, cruelty, perversion, wars, and if we think that the crowd is perverse, well, there is perversion also inside of us. We need to fight that in order to change what the crowd is. The way of being of each person is what matters, how we are internally. If we see there are different social levels, there are people from church, there are people from brothels, there are traders, there are peasants, there are a lot of people that have different personalities, but that is not our level of being. What is our level of being? How we are internally. And what does that mean? If we are generous, if we are cheap, if we are violent, if we are peaceful, if we are lustful, if we are caste. As you can see, if we have lust inside of us, we will attract different passionate tragedies to our life. As people that are drunkards, also always live in that environment of taverns and bars. So the selfish, the thief will attract many misfortunes, problems, and even be in prison. So what matters is how we are internally, to look to in within ourselves, that microcosmos, and get to know what is the darkness that is inside of us. If we have noticed that we have different emotional states of violence against oneself, always thinking that you are inferior, that always suffering, always thinking that people blame us, that we are not perfect enough, we have the ego of inferiority, of violence against ourselves. So that is our level of being, and that is our darkness, that is the psychological material to get light and wisdom and the love that is trapped in that psychological flow. When we understand and meditate why do we have that inside of us, and are willing to transcend, clean our own microcosmos to get light out of it. So, well, if you are bitter, you want to change internally. If you are suffering, you want that change. If you are tired of that, you want to turn the page. You want to be different. You want to be surrounded by different circumstances, different people, not be angry, not be sad, depressed all the time, and you want to turn the page, start again. But you don't know how. You don't know how to do it. We keep repeating the same mistakes over and over again. What we did yesterday, we will do it today, and then it will repeat tomorrow. We will keep fighting with our family. We will keep fighting with people at our jobs, and we will keep repeating the same tragedies, comedies, and dramas. Not that is going to transcend if we learn how to observe ourselves and our microcosmos, all the darkness that we have inside. So that boring repetition of our dramas, of our sufferings, is going to stop if we open the door, as you can see, of this garage, kind of garage that we have inside ourselves, that is our 97% of trapped conscience, that is our ego. We need to look at the darkness that we have inside of us. What we call our ego is our 7 causal egos: greed, lust, anger, laziness, pride, gluttony, and envy are within us. We need to look at all the details, all the scenes that had happened in our life with these psychological flaws. If you take a look and do a retrospection, an intimate reflection of your being, you will find out that, for example, when you were 7 years old, you had envy for a classmate at your school that had good results in mathematics, and you were a failure, so you felt inferiority. So you had for example, a psychological flaw of the competition that wanted to have the best results in math and didn't happen, so you have hard feelings for that, and a lot of resentment, a lot of anger, a lot of melancholy, a lot of things that you lived, and you need to get rid of that. You need to eliminate it in order to get light out of darkness. That is the material to improve our level of being. If we don't change, our level of being will repeat the same miseries and misfortunes once and over again. So if we are tired of that, we need to look at that uh, dark and kind of creepy room that is our ego, and get the trash out of it. So circumstances that occurred outside ourselves on the stage of this world are a reflection of what we have internally. Yes, we can blame the governments of our sufferings. We can blame people, our family, the tragedies that we lived. We can blame our friends for not being loyal. We can blame our sons for not behaving well. And we will defend ourselves and our beloved ego. And that is not the purpose. The purpose is to see our own darkness. In order to do that, we need to be completely honest and recognize our own darkness. How we were unfair, how we were greedy, how we were lustful, how we were, lazy sometimes. And we will get to know all the sins. How to raise your level of being. So, by law of psychological affinity, we will find out that what's around us is a reflection of what we are internally. If we complain that we live in a violent society, it's because we have the egos of violence inside of us. So we need to study that, how we manage our anger, how we for little details blow against all people that is around us. We must understand, if we want to change, that we are in a level of being, and without understanding that, it would be impossible to move to a higher level of being. As you can see in the image, as above so below, what is inside of you is a reflection of what is outside of you, and what is outside will be a reflection of what we carry inside. What we project and what we cultivate in people. We are a moving example of how to react against different circumstances. If I always react with anger, that will be my example to people that are around me, and so my interior will be a reflection of my exterior. And if I always criticize what's happening around me, that I have colleagues that are competitive, that are proud, that are being despicative, is because I have those egos too, and I have them within myself. Just I don't accept them, I don't recognize it, because I think the best of myself and I think I'm perfect. So I need to get to meditate, look at the different scenes of my life in which I have been proud, in which I have been despicative, competitive, proud, in which I have been really wanting to win the first place, and I have passed over all people that are around me just to get to that point. So I'm going to take a scene of my life in which I have done that. For example, when I gossiped about a partner at my job to get a raise. So I did that. So I am going to reflect why I did that. Because I want to be socially recognized for being higher than her, for being a better worker, for having more knowledge, for being better at what I do, for being more intellectual. So I wanted to be proud of that. So that is meditation, recognizing all the details why you fed a psychological thought. And that's going to improve your level of being, because you're going to detect all the aspects of your ego which made you act unconsciously, just feeding the inferior reactions, the inferior impulses of yourself, of your animal part. Now we're going to talk more about the esoteric job, talking about us internally, spiritually, working with our fire, how to raise my level of being. We have to take into account that we have different aspects in ourselves. Our microcosmos has all the forces of nature. If we learn to awaken our conscience, that would be the fire that is going to lighten up our contact with divinity, however you wish to call it. If you wish to call it God, if you wish to call it your inner force, your fire, that is what we are going to save. The psychological energy, emotional energy, our instinctive energy, all that we're going to balance our centers of the human machine, because we have different centers. We have the sexual part, we have the emotional center, the instinctive center, we have the mental center, the motor center. There are different places that we have in our human machine that are related to the way we act. If we have been having an anger attack, and we fed our anger and insulted everyone, and punched someone or something like that, we have been wasting all of our motor energy from the motor center, because the motor center, for example, is related to the reactions, to the movements of our body, and to the words, the actions, omissions, and words that we do in our daily life. So how to raise my level of being? Well, balancing your centers with the self-observation, that is looking at yourself in every moment. What do you want to say? What do you want to do? What do you want to feel? What do you want to do with your sexual energy? That is your level of being. And if in order to save our sexual energy, that is the force of creation, that is the fire that we have in our microcosmos, we are going to start eliminating the egos that unbalance our centers and that suck all that energy from the different centers in our human machine. That energy is the Kundalini fire, and is the fire of our love. It will only increase if we get to balance the different centers, eliminating the different psychological flaws. For example, that you get into a fight with your sister because she borrowed something from you and didn't return it, so you're going to insult her, you're going to blame her, to complain, to argue, to raise your voice, to be really mean and despicative, to think about many ways in how to offend her, to get revenge. So you're going to self-observe those impulses, those mechanical reactions, and you're going to deny. With this petition, Divine Mother, because it's the force of love, Divine Mother, eliminate me this ego that wants to get revenge, eliminate me this ego that wants to shout, that wants to complain, that wants to fight, that wants to insult. And you're going to save your motor energy, you're going to save your emotional energy, you're going to save your mental energy, because you're not worrying, you're not stressing up because of a little detail, and you're going to use that energy for a more useful purpose. For example, you always need to take into account, in order to act consciously, what is useful, what is just and truthful. If it's not just that you mistreat someone, so that is not from your conscience, and you need to eliminate that, because that is something that comes from your ego. If it is not something that is not fair, it's not fair to waste my verbal energy. It's not just for my being to get myself in a situation of anxiety, of tension, of anger. So you're going to eliminate that, because that is not from your being, that is part of your ego. Divine Mother, eliminate me that force of the ego that wants to waste my energy in unnecessary violent reactions. And you transcend that. You instantaneously are going to transcend those situations. You're going to move forward to the next level of being, because you're going to change, radically change spiritually. You're not going to be the same rational animal that reacts just because the impulses of the ego, but you're going to be conscious of what you're doing. You're going to control yourself and have the power over your microcosmos. That is the true power of the energy, of the sexual energy. So when we talk about levels of being, we talk of something that is a metaphor, but it's also literal. Well, it's the wonderful stairway. In this stairway, that is the vertical path. The vertical path is the spiritual part, the spiritual path that we are going to search for if we want any spiritual progress. In the vertical path, we find higher or lower levels of being. There are people that morally, internally, are higher than us, and there are people that are lower than us. It depends of the heaviness of our psychological flaws, but really the majority, including ourselves, are here, totally unconscious, slept. We don't know anything about the superior dimensions, because our conscience is totally slept. We need to wake up the force of our 3% of conscience, that is justice, wisdom, and love, in order to be conscious and be ascending to higher levels of being through that wonderful stairway. So there is a vertical and there is a horizontal line, and this horizontal line, sorry, represents the time in which we are born and die. That is the time of a human existence. And for example, we're going to notice that here we're born, here we're born, here we're going to the university, here we're going to get a job, etc. Here we're going to meet our couple, get married, have children, etc. and grow old and die. That is something that is from our personality because it's temporal, it's going to end up, and well, it will pass away with time. There is something that is transcendental, that is our vertical line. The vertical line is the line of the spiritual part. You can be in a spiritual level that is lower or higher according to the ego that you have eliminated. If you haven't worked on yourself, you will be here, totally slept. Your conscience has slept. If you, for example, are working in eliminating your ego in the vertical line, you're going to ascend to a higher level of being. So there is a place that is the golden place, that is the intersection between that vertical and that horizontal part, and that is the instant. The instant is the moment that we are living right now. We are going to awaken our conscience in the very moment that we live. If we are self-observing our microcosmos, in the instant, we are living the present. We are not thinking about the past or thinking about the future, but just in fully concentration, we are being conscious of what moves inside of us every instant, and we are eliminating that force of the ego. We are awakening our conscience, and those sparks, that essences released from any psychological flow that we eliminate us, will give us the light of wisdom and the fire of love to awaken our conscience and keep moving to higher levels of being every instant that we live. So, well, what we need to look when we are studying our level of being is what you're attracting. What am I attracting to my life? If all the time I am attracting people that are angry, that are proud, that are competitive, that think that because they have titles, degrees, because they are successful in the professional aspect, they are the best, that are fighting to get ascended, promoted, well, you have that inside of you. It's not the other person that you need to blame, but you need to study those psychological flaws within yourself. Because if you're attracting that to your life, it's because of the law of the magnet. That means that if we have anger inside, we are going to attract angry people, anger situations of violence, situations of discussions, of problems, of misfortunes. So you need to study those sins and meditate them in order to get wisdom out of that and get out of those sins, transcend those problems, transcend those misfortunes that get you in a lot of suffering. So this is the law of telepathy of the psychological flaws. What's inside of you, you attract it. For example, mentally you're thinking of problems, of fear of being kicked out of your job, so that's what you're going to attract. Well, being fired, because you have that fear inside of you. So you're going to do things clumsy, you're going to not be effective on what you do, because you have fear, because you have the ego of being of submission, of being really inferior in the reactions with your colleagues or your boss. You're always shy, you're always a lot of nervous inside of you is moving in that moment. So what you have, what it's around you is what you're attracting, but it's because a psychological flaw that you have inside. So as we have talked about, the critical point is the instant. We gotta learn how to live the golden moment that is the instant. From moment to moment is a higher level of being. You can ascend at any instant that you're living. You can ascend in that wonderful stairway. You can get away from that horizontal path, that is the line of the personality, because you're identified with doing just what everyone does and imitating people by the force of personality. If someone gets a really well presumed of successful job, you want to do that too. If someone purchases a car, you want to do it too, and you are living in the horizontal line of personality, just accumulating material things. So we gotta learn how to live the instant. The golden moment is that moment in which you are living the present, and we need to be aware of our microcosmos with the power of self-observation to perceive all the ego that is moving inside of us and eliminate it and get to the internal silence. The internal silence is the space in which the voice of our being is going to manifest, and the power of the intuition is just hearing to our conscience, to the voice of our being telling us what to do, how to awaken our conscience, how to save our energy, move to a higher level of being, get in touch with our spiritual part. So death reduces to ashes all the vanities of the world. What does that mean? That we will soon die in the vertical line, and what we manage with our existence. Do we manage to accumulate a lot of material things? We don't take those material things to the grave, to this samsara wheel. No, those material things are gone with death. The same with the professional degrees, the same with the vanities of life, the external aspect of our physical body. All that passes away with time. So what is real? What is the real thing in life? What is the truthful part is our essence, our energy, our spiritual part, that is the connection with our being, something that is transcendental, that is never passes away with time. And how to get in touch with that? Well, we have to manage to live the instant, not go to the past or to the future. For example, if we go to the past, we're going to remember, suffer for what people did to us, be a victim, always blame others, be resented with what happened in our past. All those things are not real. The only thing real is what we are living in the moment, the present. And if we futurize. We imagine how our life will be if we had more money, if we did this and that, if we studied this and that, if we travel here and there. That is not real. That is wasting a lot of emotional energy, mental energy, and that is not going to solve anything. So the answer is just living the moment, just in internal silence, eliminating all the voices that want to take us from the present to the future, and just living the moment. That will awaken our conscience. Mm, if we practice the ongoing death is eliminating at every instant all the forces of our ego that want to distract us and that don't let us concentrate. What is concentration? Conscience centered in action. Our conscience needs to be centered in every action in silence, just only doing what we do, completely focused, without chatting internally, without any emotion of liking, disliking, not, just in internal complete silence. And that is going to awake us, our conscience, and you will get to see the results almost immediately if you're doing it sincerely. So also, something that is going to take us to a higher level of being is stopping criticism. Why? Because if we are criticizing people around us, we are not self-observing our microcosmos, but looking at the psychological flaws that other people have. We are not going to change people around us. We are not able to eliminate a psychological flaw of another person. We are not going to get your colleague to stop being angry, to stop being bossy. No, you're not going. There is no possible way you can change other one. You need to change yourself, because your own darkness is what's going to make the difference. If you turn it into light, it would lighten up your surroundings. But if you only criticize, you're just going to make the darkness that's around you become even more dark. You're not going to see anything. You're going to lose the power to observe yourself, and you're going to lose the power of recognizing your own microcosmos. You're attracting more karmas. Why? Because if you criticize someone, what the spiritual part does is he's going to put you in the shoes of the person that you criticize, in order that you can get to know why does that person act the way he acts. You don't know the reasons that motivate a person to be angry. Maybe he has problems at home. He doesn't know how to control himself. He is suffering because of that, and you always criticize the person instead of understanding, and understanding that you also have that anger inside of yourself, and you haven't eliminated that in order to be blaming that person. So we need to transform those mechanical reactions of blaming people, of not assuming our part of unconsciousness. When we lived a scene of anger, for example, we forget what we did, we forget the insults that we said, the despicative things that we said, we just forget them. And the power of observing ourselves is that we are going to develop our memory. Yes, we are going to do a conscious retrospection, and we are going to recognize and accept how we raised our voice, we were really vindictive. We try to search for many ways to offend that person, just to humiliate that person. So we are going to recognize all the ways in which we mistreated that person, and stop criticism, because it's only with self-observation that we can transcend and ascend the levels of being. We have the power to change ourselves, but we don't have the power to change others, and we are not looking at all of what that person is in order to know why he acts the way he acts. If we criticize, we are going to be put in the shoes of that person. For example, if we criticize our parents for being really angry, we are going to be put in a situation of anger just to get to know why do they act the way they act. It's only when we have a son that we understand why our parents acted the way we act. For example, because we get to see the other perspective. That is not easy to raise someone, to tell someone how to act, to educate that person is not an easy task. And if you were criticizing your parents for educating you the way that they did, you only get to learn why they did that when you are put in the perspective of being a parent, for example. But you can put yourself in other one's shoes, not only by being put in that situation. With a reflection, with a meditation, you can put yourself in the situation of other one, avoiding to be attracting the same situation or the same misfortune. You can transcend that with a reflection or a meditation. Because what happens is that if you point someone with your finger, really what happens is that you are going to be divine justice is going to be done with you, but 3 times harder. If you demand justice to be done with that person, that person should be punished. He is so mean. He needs people to tell him that he's so mean. He needs to suffer for that. Well, divine justice is going to be the same, punishing you for demanding justice with others to be done, because you need to do justice with your microcosmos first. Your own justice is going to be recognizing your own darkness, and if you don't do it for yourself, well, the divine law just is going to put you in a situation 3 times harder than the person that you are criticizing, in order for you to put yourself in his shoes. So we're going to talk about what is the psychological rebellion. That is the way to transcend and get to higher levels of being, not identifying with a problem you have. For example, you lose your job. You are going to drown yourself in a lot of worries, a lot of concerns. Oh, how I am going to obtain money. I'm going to be miserable. I'm going to be in the streets asking for money. Oh, and you imagine, mechanical imagination is going to put a lot of things in your head that are not real. So if you identify with the problem, if you become the victim and suffer, you are not going to see the situation objectively. You're not going to remember your being, the value of your being. That is it worth that to attempt to your physical body with all that anxieties, worries, stress, internal suffering? Is it worth it to bring that to your physical body just because you lost a job? No, it's worth first the health of my physical body, my psychological health is not worth as much as a job. So you're going to confront that and you're going to get to the real thing uh, internally. With the power of your justice, wisdom, and love, you're going to be balancing things, getting into harmony, and finding out what is most important. The most important is your energy, your internal states that are balanced, that you're in equilibrium, is not worth as much as a job. That is something about from your personality. For example, if you meditate, that you can meditate it with a lot of problems you have. For example, there are many people that suffer because they had a fight with their couple and the relationship is over. If they identify the problem, many people identified with their suffering, that they're not gonna find someone as valuable as the couple that they had, that they are never going to find someone like that, that they are suffering so much, and many people even get to commit suicide. Violence against yourself. So what is worth, what is the most valuable? Your physical body, your existence, your emotional health, your psychological health, your physical state, or that intranscendental and temporary problem. All the problems have solution if you listen to the voice of your spiritual part, your being. You are going to learn to find out what is truthful, what is real, what is just, what is fair, and what is useful. Is it useful to be suffering like that? Why? Am I going to change that someone dumped me because I am suffering? No, I'm not going to change it. I am only going to hurt myself. So I'm going to get out of that psychological state. That is psychological rebellion. Rebelling yourself against your egos. Your egos is the forces of darkness that want to swallow your energy and want to get you into a state of involution. That is the darkness and the force of ego. The force of conscience that just wants to bring light to your life and to do a serious creation for your spiritual part. What is a serious creation? Well, creating the existential bodies of your being that are going to get to bring to you the gift, the spiritual gift of just knowing the different dimensions of nature. The physical dimension is not the only one that exists. We have also the astral dimension. You can know all the secrets of your astral dimension, but if you have more patience and you just don't identify with the intranscendental problems, the little problems that you have in your daily life, you're going to get to know the secrets of the universe. All the Greeks had a sentence that said, man, know yourself and you will get to know the universe and their gods. We can learn how to get out an astral projection and travel to all parts of the universe and see many amazing things, and also the darkness in ourselves. We can take a look at that, but if we awaken our conscience, that is the most important thing to do. With a logical confrontation, you can get to know what is just, what is fair, what is truthful, and what is useful. And those three things are the most important to know if you are feeding an ego or if you are awakening our conscience. If you find out that a mechanical reaction of anger is not useful because it will waste a lot of your motor energy and will leave you depressed, will leave you without energy for doing anything, without the mood to do nothing, without the inspiration. You just want to lay down in bed and sleep after an anger attack. So it's not something that is useful. It's not something that is truthful. Why? Because that is something that passes away with time. You will be angry in a moment, and at the next moment someone takes you and outside, eat an ice cream or whatever, and you forget that you're angry. Something temporary. And it's something that is not fair. Useful, truthful, and fair. It's not fair to your being to mistreat your own being, to mistreat your emotional center, your intellectual center, your physical body with these negative emotions that come to you and you want to feed them. So you need to self-observe yourself in order to be looking at those forces of ego that want you to feed them. If you want to feed insult, violence, if you want to feed depression, you are going to look at those emotions and thoughts that tell you to do it, and just say, Divine Mother, eliminate me this ego of insults, for example, and you're going to change and transcend those egos. Also, the way to ascend in the stairway of the levels of being is working with the three factors of the revolution of the conscience. This is a vertical line that is the spiritual line that relates to the level of our being and depends of our creative sexual energy, because with that sexual energy we're going to create the existential bodies of our being. So we need to save that energy and avoid mechanical and instinctive reactions of anger, greed, lust, and that energy is going to help you work with the kundalini in the practice of the suprasex and condense it in your spinal cord to move to higher levels of being. Internally, you're going to awaken your conscience in all the levels, and you're going to create body by body. You're going to regenerate physical body, vital body, create your astral body, create your mental body, your causal body, and unite with your buddhic and atmic body. So a higher level of being is immediately above us from instant to instant. If we eliminate our ego in the instant that we are living, we are going in that instant immediately to awaken a little bit more of conscience. The horizontal line, we said that was the line of the personality of being born and die. That is something that is temporary and will pass away. So to ascend our level of being, we need to work with the three factors of the revolution of the conscience. We have talked about psychological death, that is the base, because we are going to see our darkness and we're going to save the light that we rescue from that darkness, eliminating the impulses that make us act according to our forces of just destruction and not the virtues of our being. Yes, we're going to learn how to not identify ourselves with lust, with greed, with ambition, mm, with vanity, and eliminating those egos. We're going to take out the virtue that is trapped in the psychological flow. That virtue is the essence, fire and love, that we are going to condense with the practice of suprasex or spiritual birth in our spinal cord. And that is the height. That is the height, because if we have the fire kundalini in our spinal cord, we have power. We have power to travel in the different dimensions of nature, to create things that are conscious and not being slept all the time through life. And the impulse is going to ascend in a higher level of being is the sacrifice for mankind. That is the force of love, because we're going to help people fight against their own darkness, stop suffering for the same things. We are going to teach us how we're going to teach people how to transcend the same dramas, tragedies, comedies, to stop suffering for the same things that they cannot get out of, like a vicious cycle. We are going to take them out of their misery, bringing them a solution, just eliminating your ego and working for your spiritual part. And that is uninterested, not expecting to be paid, not expecting to be recognized, just for the love of doing it, so people can be in peace and listening to the voice of their being. So that was the conference of the levels of being. Conference number 24. I hope it has been clear, and thank you for your attention. If you have any questions, you can ask, or something to add.